She exploded at an incredible millionaire. What his mother revealed will leave you transformed. Emma wiped down the counter with more force than necessary, the cool cloth barely absorbing her mounting frustration. The diner buzzed with the chatter of locals, a refuge where people felt seen, yet today, the air felt charged. Her long shifts spent serving coffee and flipping burgers strained her body and soul, and she desperately craved something more than endless bills and a life dedicated to raising her younger brother after their parents split. With every passing day, dreams of a brighter future seemed obscured by the grease of the diner and the weight of unpaid bills. Suddenly, the door swung open, and a gust of cold air accompanied a polished figure. Jackson, the millionaire everyone spoke of. She recognized him immediately, that smirk of privilege plastered across his face. He exuded a condescension she couldn't ignore, disdain dripping from his tone as he surveyed the eclectic crowd. Emma's pulse quickened. The casual dismissal of the very community that supported him ignited a fire within her. Who the hell did he think he was? Look at this place, Jackson scoffed, a dismissive wave toward the colorful murals. It's like a museum of mediocrity. The words hung in the air for a split second, palpable contempt echoing around the room. Emma felt her stomach knot, and without thinking, she marched over to him. "Excuse me." Her voice rang out louder than she intended. The diner went silent, all eyes on the unfolding confrontation. "You know, people here work hard, like really hard, to make a living. You wouldn't understand, would you?" Emma's heart raced, and she could feel the tension like a chorus, an audience entranced by this very American showdown of class and ambition. Jackson's eyes widened, baffled by her audacity. Before she could take breath, Helen, Jackson's mother, emerged from the shadows, her presence somehow grounding yet heavy. "He doesn't know," she began, her voice soft but resonant. Emma glanced back, shocked to see a woman of grace and vulnerability standing behind Jackson, someone who carried the weight of her own past. "Maybe he doesn't realize that these very people built the foundation of his success." His father, Helen's voice faltered for a moment, nostalgia creeping in. "He was once one of them. A carpenter who poured his heart into this town before he became a wealthy man." The revelation sent shockwaves through the diner, leaving Emma to wrestle with the haunting truths she had never considered about Jackson. "Mom, stop," Jackson muttered, the anger in his tone faltering, revealing cracks beneath his polished surface. Emma watched, transfixed, as emotions played across his features, a fierce internal struggle shaping him in real time. She felt an odd flicker of compassion for his distress, while her own frustration simmered, looking for release. As the diners returned to their meals, Emma's mind churned. She needed connection, resolution, something to break the cycle she felt trapped in. "Why don't you try giving back, rather than belittling?" she blurted. Her eyes locked onto his, fierce determination coursing through her veins. "You could actually help fix the local library, you know. Make this place more than just a dot on your map." "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Jackson's demeanor shifted. Challenge met with challenge, an uneasy bond sparked. But what could this mean for her? The suffocating weight of her own responsibilities loomed larger at this collision of lives. Could a man like him truly grasp the invaluable essence of hard work? Emma struggled to shake the idea that this might be her only chance, not just to balance her ambitions against the everyday grind, but to expose her insecurities tied to her role, the protector of her brother, a waitress, and a dreamer. Suddenly the diner's phone rang, a shrill interruption slicing through the tension. It shattered the moment, leaving Emma and Jackson on the precipice of change, their fates dangling in the balance, uncertain. What choice would Jackson make? What would this leave for Emma, who dared to dream beyond the confines of grease-stained tables? Their paths hung in fragile anticipation, suspended in a world that didn't promise easy solutions, but echoed with possibility. Emma stood in the silence that followed the ringing phone, the weight of her words hanging in the air like a heavy fog. Her heart thudded, a fierce cadence threatening to drown out reason. She stole a glance at Jackson, who seemed momentarily lost within the tumult of his thoughts. The contempt that had marked his earlier demeanor showed signs of conflict, the softening of his posture, the slight flicker of vulnerability in his gaze. Was it possible for someone like him to understand the gravity of her plea? Did he even care? She shook off the doubts trailing her thoughts like unwanted shadows, nervous anticipation coiling in her stomach. A pivotal moment had just begun, one that might bring her face to face with the future she longed for. With an almost imperceptible nod, Jackson stepped forward, breaking the stillness. "What do you suggest?" His voice was low, stripped of pretense. A strange alliance born in a high-stakes kitchen of dreams and burdens. Emma's breath caught. His engagement was unexpected, yet welcomed. "Maybe start small. See the difference just one small act can make," Emma found herself saying, playing the words over in her mind. "This town may be a dot on someone's map, but to us, it's home. If you really want to step up, help with the library. It's a hub for kids who can't afford books or the internet. It matters." Jackson's brow furrowed, expression deep in contemplation. She knew he was weighing her words against the life he had lived, the world he belonged to. But this moment was more than just a conversation, it was a reckoning of sorts for both of them. Emma realized she had inadvertently opened up a door not just for him, but also for herself. "I'll think about it," he replied cautiously, before turning away. The glint of his polished shoes retreated toward the diner's exit. But Emma could see the wheels turning behind his eyes. This could be the beginning, a fork in the road where privilege met promise. As he stepped out into the cold breeze that lingered outside, Emma felt a pang of uncertainty. Had she done enough? Would he follow through with her audacious suggestion? The air in the diner seemed thicker now, filled with unspoken implications and unresolved tension. She returned to the counter, wiping down surfaces that still bore the remnants of the breakfast rush. But despite the hum of activity around her, her mind was less focused on the diner and more on the precarious balance of hopes that had just emerged. What if Jackson actually rose to the challenge? What if he contributed to a cause that could uplift not just the library, but her entire community? That night, as she lay awake in her small room with her brother snoring softly nearby, Emma's pulse quickened. The conversations replayed in her head, the glimmer of possibility, the shared vulnerability. Maybe this moment wasn't just about him, maybe it was also about her. Perhaps it was time to make her own plans for change, a departure from the diner's grease-stained world towards something brighter. A fire ignited within her. The realization that her voice mattered ignited a desire for more. And beyond wanting a brighter future for herself and her brother, Emma felt the stirrings of ambition and urge to rise from merely dreaming to engaging in her aspirations. As dawn painted the sky with the soft blush of morning, Emma was ready. It was time to put one foot in front of the other, whether that meant confronting Jackson again or advocating for her own dreams. She pulled out her notebook, a gift from her mother, filled with scribbles and half-formed ideas. It was a starting point, a map for a future still waiting to be carved out. Emma took a deep breath and began to write, pouring out everything she feared and desired, hoping Jackson would rise to the occasion and join her in that pursuit. The thought sent adrenaline coursing through her veins. But as she wrote, a deeper question emerged: what if Jackson wasn't the only one who needed to rise? What role would she play in the narrative unfolding before her? A knock at her front door shattered her thoughts, pulling her back from the precarious precipice of possibility she stood over, illuminating the impending choices yet to be made. Without hesitation, she stood and opened the door. What awaited her could either shatter her limits or ignite a change she could never have anticipated. Emma blinked in surprise at the figure standing on her doorstep. It was Mrs. Whitaker, Jackson's mother, a woman who commanded attention even without uttering a word. Clad in an impeccably tailored coat that contrasted with the humble surroundings, she radiated an air of authority mixed with an unsettling kindness. Emma's heart raced. Why was she here? "Emma," Mrs. Whitaker said, her voice silky yet assertive, "May I come in?" Emma hesitated, uncertain of what to expect. With a brief nod, she stepped aside, inviting the woman inside. The atmosphere shifted as Mrs. Whittaker crossed the threshold, her presence instantly elevating the mundane interior of Emma's home into something more significant. "Thank you for allowing me in," Mrs. Whittaker stated, quite aware of the dissonance between their worlds. Her eyes roamed the small living space briefly, and Emma could almost feel the judgment lurking beneath the surface. But instead of retreating, she pushed that thought aside, determined to hold her ground. "Is everything all right with Jackson?" Emma asked, her voice steady, but internally she was wrestling with a mix of fear and curiosity. The weight of her earlier conversation with him hung in the air like a promise yet unfulfilled. "Jackson has been talking a lot about you," Mrs. Whittaker replied, her expression shifting to something more contemplative, almost warm. "More than I expected. I think he is at a crossroads, and you might be part of it." Emma felt a spark of empowerment at that statement. "I just suggested he help with the library," she said, the words tumbling out before she could second-guess them. Suddenly, she didn't feel like a mere diner waitress but a catalyst for change. "Yes," Mrs. Whittaker replied slowly, as if measuring the words. "I've noticed my son has been drawn to your passion." She paused, her gaze piercing through Emma. "But passion isn't enough, is it? Change requires intention, strategy." Her tone shifted subtly, as though she was asserting not just a statement but a philosophy. The intensity of the conversation hung between them, ripe with unspoken challenges. Mrs. Whittaker leaned in, her presence enveloping the space. "What is it you want, Emma? What do you truly desire beyond this town?" The directness of the question felt like a jolt. Emma hesitated. For so long, she had been focused on survival, getting by, keeping her brother's future bright, sustaining the diner. But now, in this moment of confrontation, she sensed an awakening of ambition buried deep within her. "I want to make a difference," she said, surprising even herself with the metal in her voice. "I want to show the kids in this town that they matter. Just because they live here doesn't mean they should settle for less." Mrs. Whittaker regarded her with newfound respect. "Then we must turn that passion into action." The confidence in her voice felt like a tether, pulling Emma closer to a destiny she had only begun to envision. "Jackson needs someone who won't just nudge him toward a cause but will challenge him to be better, to go further. Someone who won't back down." The gravity of Mrs. Whittaker's words settled upon Emma like a cloak of resolve. This was her moment. She was no longer voiceless, she could be integral in shaping the course of Jackson's and perhaps her own life. "I want to be that person," Emma asserted, drawing in a breath that anchored her determination. "But I don't know how to start." A smile flickered across Mrs. Whittaker's face, almost conspiratorial. "Then it's time for you to learn what it means to rise above your circumstances, Emma. We'll work together." Emma felt a surge of unexpected joy paired with apprehension. The enormity of the task ahead loomed. How could she carve out a path when so many obstacles lay in her way? As Mrs. Whittaker turned to leave, sealing their newfound alliance, she left Emma with a final thought. "The first step is always the hardest. But I think you'll surprise yourself." With a heart racing with anticipation, Emma closed the door. It was a small step towards something larger, yet she felt the tremors of growth stirring deep within her. But as she stood in her humble living room, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. What unforeseen challenges lay in wait? Would Jackson truly step up? Would she be able to meet the expectations thrust upon her? As the sun dipped below the horizon, Emma returned to her notebook, fingers hovering over the page. What was her next move? The darkness outside felt hiding, yet full of promise. In focusing on her own development, she realized she was on the brink of uncovering hidden strengths she never knew existed. The next chapter of her life was approaching, and she wasn't ready to back down. Emma took a deep breath. This was only the start. What awaited her could redefine everything she had come to understand about herself. Emma awoke to the buzz of a new day, her heart still buoyed by the promise of change. The cool morning light filtered through her curtains, illuminating the pages of her notebook, filled with scribbles of goals and aspirations. She almost couldn't recognize the person staring back at her in her own reflection, one who dared to dream beyond the cafe's grease-stained counters and the small-town chatter. Stirring her coffee, she contemplated where to begin. Mrs. Whittaker's words rang in her ears, "We'll work together." The weight of the alliance hung over her, a blend of excitement and anxiety. This was more than just about Jackson, this was a transformation that could ripple through her very being. As she opened her notebook, Emma drafted a plan for their first meeting. It had to be strategic, intentional, a framework to guide their efforts. She would emphasize what she felt strongly about, the potential for the kids to grapple with their futures actively, rather than passively absorbing a narrative that their dreams were unachievable. With a newfound sense of purpose, Emma decided to seek out Jackson that afternoon, needing to gauge his commitment. She felt an unexpected urgency to know if he truly wanted to break free from the expectations placed upon him not just by his mother but by society. How could she challenge him if he wasn't willing to rise to the occasion? Hours later, she found herself at the library, an unassuming structure that now felt like a launch pad for their ideas. Jackson met her there, a curious smile on his face that quickly turned to concern when he realized the intensity of Emma's demeanor. "What's up? You sound serious," he said, leaning against a stack of books. "Jackson," she began, steadying her voice, "I come with an opportunity, and I need to know if you're ready to take it." The air thickened with unspoken tensions, remnants of their previous conversations lingering between them. "What do you mean?" He furrowed his brow, shifting from casual to cautious. "I want to help you explore what you truly care about," Emma explained. "But I need your commitment. We can start work in the library, but it goes deeper than that. I want us to challenge each other to aim higher." His eyes flickered with uncertainty, the initial enthusiasm she'd hoped for dimmed by apprehension. "I appreciate that, Emma, but my mom, you know how she feels about what?" Emma interjected, frustration bubbling beneath her calm exterior. "You think I care about what she wants us to be? We need to redefine that. I can't let her mold us into versions of ourselves that we're not." Emma's voice rose slightly, an unmistakable spark ignited within her. Jackson took a step back, clearly taken aback by her fervor. "Whoa. Easy now. I'm all for making a difference, but this feels huge." "Because it is huge." Emma shot back. "It's about us. Our choices. The legacy we create for ourselves, not the one handed down to us. We're more than expectations, and we should act like it." There was a silence, palpable and heavy. In her passionate outburst, Emma realized she was confronting not only Jackson's doubts but articulating her own fears, the fear of not making a difference, of stagnant potential. She took a breath, her heart racing, desperately needing to steer this conversation back into a productive direction. "I want you to promise me that you'll explore this with me. Don't let your mom's ambitions tie you down," she implored, a tremble of vulnerability creeping into her otherwise steadfast tone. The tension lingered, but Jackson finally nodded, a flicker of determination shining in his eyes. "Okay, I'm in. Let's see where this goes." Emma felt the breath she hadn't realized she was holding release in a whisper of relief. It was a small victory, but one that reverberated with the potential for the long journey ahead. Yet even with that spark of hope, doubts crept in. Was Jackson truly committed, or were his words just a fleeting agreement? As the sun began to set, casting long shadows in the library, Emma's mind churned with strategies for their next move. She wanted to immerse him in ideas, creativity, explore different avenues of thought and emotion. They had to confront their fears collectively and apply action, not just passion. Yet, as she pondered their journey, a single question nagged at her: were they both ready to face the familial pressures that would undoubtedly arise? The path before them twisted with uncertainties and obstacles, some rooted deep in their respective pasts. Emma resolved to meet those challenges head-on, and as she turned to leave, the determination bubbling within her felt almost like a call to arms. Whatever lay ahead, she was ready to face it, not just for Jackson but for herself, but even as hope illuminated her path, shadows loomed in the corners of her mind. What would Mrs. Whittaker think? Would she support their endeavor, or would she see it as a threat? Emma pressed her lips together, stepping out into the twilight. Her commitment was blooming into something powerful that could redefine not just her life but Jackson's too. She wasn't merely preparing herself for their first step, she was orchestrating a revolution in their minds. And though uncertainty tinged the horizon, one thought consumed her: she was ready to discover exactly what she and Jackson were capable of. Little did she know, a confrontation awaited with someone she never expected. Would they stand strong, or would fear cripple their resolve? The next day dawned with a heavy silence that settled around Emma like fog. As she entered the café, the usual chatter felt distant, the cheerful clinking of cups failed to reach her core. There was a part of her that longed for the familiar, but it was eclipsed by a burgeoning fire of determination. She had embraced the idea of change, yet what lay ahead felt unfathomable. Her interactions with Jackson still replayed in her mind, each dialogue threaded with possibilities. She focused on their upcoming meeting, envisioning a space not just for discussion but for genuine exploration. They would dive into passions, dissect dreams and fears. Yet, a nagging anxiety crawled up her spine. What if they found nothing? What if, after all this fervor, they couldn't unearth the courage needed to act? The morning rush began to gather, and Emma forced her attention to the tasks before her. As she flipped through orders, she pondered how to guide Jackson effectively. They needed a framework, something tangible that could help them measure progress. It wasn't enough to ignite ambition, they had to channel it toward achievable goals. As she prepped another batch of pastries, the bell over the door jingled and drew her attention. A new customer entered, a woman wearing a strikingly tailored blazer that contrasted sharply with the café's cozy decor. The woman had a sharp air about her, exuding confidence. Emma instinctively felt an unease simmering beneath her skin. This woman possessed an authority that suggested a different world than hers. "Good morning. What can I get for you?" Emma's voice steadied despite the unsettling presence. The woman approached with an air of purpose, scanning the café before her gaze settled on Emma. "I'll take a dark roast, please. Black." As Emma prepared the order, the woman continued, "I'm new in town. Heard this place has the best pastries." "I try my best," Emma replied, her response automatic. She found herself eyeing the woman's hands, which flicked through a sleek planner. There was something about that planner which screamed ambition, a stark contrast to her own worn notebook of dreams. "Are you planning a big event?" Emma asked, her curiosity piqued. The woman smirked, a glint of awareness in her eyes. "Not quite. Just organizing my life. I consult with several young professionals looking to break through their circumstances." The statement reverberated in Emma's mind, awakening a flicker of intrigue. "Break through?" Emma echoed, her focus heightened. "That sounds intense." "Oh, it is. It's not for the faint of heart." The woman's gaze met Emma's with newfound intensity. "You seem like someone who might understand. Change isn't easy, but it can be transformative." As the woman pronounced each word, Emma could feel a new wave of conviction welling within her. Was this woman an ally? A competitor? Emma couldn't obliterate the sensation that this encounter was pivotal, a thread pulling at the tapestry of her plans with Jackson. "How did you get started?" Emma dared to ask, her mind racing with possibilities. The woman shrugged, a knowing smile forming. "It's about taking risks. Sometimes leaning into discomfort is where real growth happens. You can either blend into the background or force the world to notice you. The choice is always yours." That power statement lingered, a drumbeat in Emma's mind. Suddenly, she felt the urge to connect. Their paths crossed for a reason, didn't they? "I'm working with a friend. We're challenging each other to reshape our futures," she shared, the words spilling out. "We're not ready to back down." "Brave of you," the woman remarked, a subtle smirk dancing at the corners of her lips. "Just be careful with commitment. You may find some truths harder to confront than expected. Emma's heart raced. The woman's keen observation felt unnervingly personal, charging the air between them. Was she revealing more than she was comfortable with? Do you believe in risks? Emma challenged as she handed over the dark roast. The woman took her cup, a thoughtful expression washing over her face. Every day presents a choice, and every choice carries consequences. Choose wisely. With that cryptic parting note, she sauntered off, leaving Emma with swirling thoughts and a chase for clarity. As the sun ascended higher, Emma's resolve solidified. She wouldn't let anxiety dictate her journey. Jackson's promise of commitment needed to be met with an unwavering plan, a commitment to growth, no matter the confrontation. But as she glanced at her notebook, a single question thrummed persistently: was she truly prepared for the truths she might unearth, not just within herself but within Jackson as well? With determination hardened by curiosity and fear, Emma turned her thoughts to the next step. She needed to confront the unknown head-on. Moments of revelation awaited, and she was ready to embrace both the sunlight and the shadows. Little did she know, a revelation inked in that cafe would reshape her understanding of commitment and desire, one she never saw coming. The next day brought a surge of energy along with the morning light, spilling into the cafe as if to signal a fresh start. Emma arrived early, brimming with both excitement and trepidation about her meeting with Jackson. She could no longer deny the weight of responsibility she felt. Their process would shape them in ways they couldn't yet imagine. As the cafe filled up, she leaned against the counter, tapping her fingers rhythmically against the polished wood. Her notebook lay open before her, filled with hasty notes about their discussions and how to steer them toward actionable steps. Ideas blossomed, each one a potential anchor in their quest for growth. But doubt still nipped at her heels. Was she capable of leading someone else through the labyrinth of their fears? When Jackson entered, the world outside faded into the background. His demeanor was confident yet reserved, a tightrope walk between eagerness and apprehension. He spotted Emma and greeted her with a nod, a hint of a smile breaking through. "Ready for this?" he asked, his voice steady, but his eyes gave away his uncertainty. "I am. I've been thinking about how we can frame our discussions," she replied, gesturing toward their usual spot. "I believe we need goals, but more importantly, we need to confront what holds us back." Jackson took a seat, leaning forward, his expression earnest. "I want to dive deep. I've spent too long worrying about the surface." Emma's pulse quickened at his words. He was ready, they both were. Yet, part of her wouldn't let go of the woman's parting caution: some truths might be harder to confront than expected. "Let's start with fear," Emma suggested, her tone carefully measured. "What scares you the most about trying to change your life?" He hesitated, the pause stretching between them. Finally, he spoke, not with the bravado he usually wore, but with vulnerability. "Failure. I've seen people fail, friends, family members. It's hard to watch them struggle, and I feel that if I try and fail, I'm just repeating their mistakes." His admission hit Emma like a sudden gust of wind. She could feel her own fears mirroring his. The weight of her expectations and ambitions collided with the reality of their shared vulnerabilities. The thought that her own inherent doubts might surface in Jackson's process made her stomach churn. Fear of failure can be paralyzing, she conceded. But what if we reframe it? What if failing is just a step toward understanding what doesn't work? What if we can view it as part of learning? Jackson nodded slowly, processing her words. What if we could redefine success alongside failure? What does that look like? She breathed deeply, the air thick with possibility. They needed to carve a path out of the unknown that would be both brave and realistic. Perhaps success is about growth, about learning from those failures rather than letting them define us. The conversation flowed, marked by moments of laughter and silence, revelations unspooling before them like a vivid tapestry. They not only explored what frightened them but also acknowledged their capability for resilience. Emma felt a fire ignite within her, a growing confidence that this dialogue was necessary, not just for Jackson's development, but for her own as well. As they transitioned to their next topic, Emma's thoughts drifted back to the woman in the blazer. Her warnings loomed like a shadow. Had that brief encounter stirred something in Emma? She couldn't ignore the emotional undercurrents of their conversations, the cracks and fissures beginning to show in their own armor. By the end of their meeting, Emma felt a sense of empowerment. They had taken the first step in reshaping their futures, yet she sensed it was only the beginning, a prelude to deeper questioning. Yet, as they said their goodbyes and she watched Jackson leave, Emma felt a shiver run through her. There was more to uncover, both in their shared experiences and within herself. What would they discover if they pressed further into their depths? A single thought echoed through her mind: was she prepared to explore those uncharted territories, even if it meant confronting her own fears? The next day awaited with new challenges, but as Emma moved through the cafe, she couldn't shake the feeling that a storm was brewing, ready to reveal truths that might forever alter their course. Emma woke to a morning that felt heavy with anticipation. The sun peeked through her bedroom curtains, illuminating the reminders of yesterday's revelations scattered around her workspace. Notebooks brimming with insights and half-formed ideas lined the desk, and the board overhead bore index cards with phrases like redefining success and embracing fear. Each phrase rattled her with exhilaration and anxiety, live wires of potential and peril. Determined to channel her emotions, she organized the scattered papers into a coherent plan for Jackson's next session. The fragmented pieces of their shared experience needed to be transformed into a structured approach, a carving of their raw discoveries into a roadmap for growth. Was she leading this process, or were both of them co-pilots on an expedition into their psyches? As she prepared to meet Jackson, doubt curled in her stomach again. What if she stumbled? What if the framework she deconstructed was nothing more than a facade? Her self-criticism bubbled beneath the surface, but her resolve pressed back in the form of a question: wasn't vulnerability part of the growth she wanted to encourage in him? Perhaps that same transparency would allow her to confront her uncertainties. At the cafe, she arrived early, pacing the familiar floor, letting the ambient noise wash over her. The caffeine buzz of other patrons was a buzz of possibility, yet her internal dialogue felt muted, a stark contrast to the animated discussions around her. When Jackson arrived, he looked different, determined, perhaps, or more grounded. The signs of their last conversation still flickered in his eyes. "I did a lot of thinking last night," he said, sitting across from her. Emma felt her heart race. "About what?" "About failure," he replied, leaning forward with intent. "I realized I've been so focused on what I don't want to happen that I've neglected what I do want. It's this whole mindset that I need to shake off." "What do I want to achieve?" "Yes. What do you want?" she urged, her pulse quickening with excitement. She sensed the shift within him, the spark of ambition igniting against the dampened coal of fear. "I want to create something that matters," Jackson confessed, passion threading through his voice. "Something that helps others. I don't want to just exist, I want to impact." Their conversation took on a velocity of its own, propelled by the urgency of Jackson's revelations. They brainstormed action steps, what ideas he wanted to execute, who he could reach out to for support, and how he could begin to infuse meaning into his work. Emma listened intently, but beneath her encouragement lay a growing itch of envy. What did she want? Suddenly, she was on the brink of confronting her own failures, her own fears. She had helped Jackson to reveal layers of aspiration, yet she was still grappling with identifying her own. The woman from the previous meeting lingered in her mind, a specter driving her to reflect on the path not taken. For a fleeting moment, she wondered if she was meant to inspire others while living in the shadow of her aspirations. The image of a bold new project sparked in her consciousness, a potential venture she had pondered half-heartedly but had never seriously pursued. "Jackson," what if, she began, hesitantly. "What if we could turn our sessions into something bigger? A workshop or a group where we can share these insights? Help others who feel trapped like we once did?" He looked at her, processing the idea. "You mean, put ourselves out there? Share our stories?" The prospect bore a weight of vulnerability that both thrilled and terrified her. "Yes. But I need you on this journey with me. It's a way to ensure that neither of us falls back into our old patterns. The idea felt monumental, but the obstacles in her mind began to swell, doubts about her credibility, fears about exposure. Would she crumble under the weight of expectation? Nevertheless, the glimmer in Jackson's eyes ignited something fierce within her, a recognition of her potential to be not just a guide, but a leader. "Let us plan it," Jackson said, a wide smile illuminating his face. "I'm in. If we can help people like us, it will define our purpose." Emma beamed, a mixture of exhilaration and dread cascading through her. This was an untested frontier, one that could lead to grandeur or disaster. As they made plans for the next steps, she could sense the urgency to move forward, but a nagging thought echoed relentlessly: what if this entire endeavor revealed more about her own fears than she was ready to confront? As they wrapped their meeting, Emma realized perhaps it was time to step out of the shadows. But stepping into the light could mean facing more than just her anxiety. It meant confronting the woman in the blazer and seeking answers about the life she truly desired. What lurking truths would emerge as she dismantled her barriers? The thought sent a chill down her spine, a blend of dread and excitement. The next day loomed ahead, not just as a blank canvas for their plans, but as a battleground for her own fears. Emma knew it was only the precipice of an intense journey, one that could force her to discover who she truly was, amidst the noise of aspiration. Emma awoke with a sense of urgency, her heart pounding in rhythm with the dialogue still swirling in her mind. The cafe's bright sunlit corner, where she and Jackson had laid the groundwork for their new venture, loomed like an untamed landscape in her thoughts. Was she truly ready for this leap? The weight of their ambition pressed heavily on her chest, sending ripples of doubt through her resolve. In the shower, she replayed their conversation, mentally drafting what she would say to a group of eager listeners. Would her voice waver? Would they see right through the facade of confidence she hoped to project? Stepping out of the shower, she caught her reflection in the fogged mirror, a woman determined yet unsure, vibrant ideas flickering beneath the surface. As she dressed, Emma considered the various personas she could adopt: authentic and vulnerable, or polished and composed. Perhaps a balance between the two would resonate best with those who would find their way to their sessions. She was not just facilitating, she needed to embody the transformation she sought to inspire in others. Arriving at her workspace, she pored over the notes and outlines from Jackson's passionate discourse. They were filled with potential yet echoed her own lack of clarity. She needed to find her voice and articulate her vision more than ever. The project would not work if she remained half-hidden behind her insecurities. An email pinged on her phone. Jackson was suggesting a meeting to revise their ideas for the workshop. His enthusiasm pulled her, and soon, she was prepping an agenda that went beyond logistics. She scribbled down questions that probed the very essence of their mission. What unique insights could she offer? What experiences shaped her current desires? The hours slipped away as she collected her thoughts, confident drafts transforming into tentative musings. When she finally met Jackson, he radiated the same energy that had sparked their previous meeting. Yet, there was also an unmistakable anxiety beneath his eagerness, a fragile thread linking their shared desire to serve others with the fear of exposing themselves. "Emma," he started, his brow furrowed in concentration. "I think we need to dig deeper. It's easy to preach about transformation, but we must confront the truth of our struggles, don't you think?" His confidence flickered her own insecurity. Did she have the courage to share her past failures? The notion of disclosure sent a jolt of fear spiraling through her. She wouldn't merely be a guide, she'd be revealing the vulnerabilities that had held her captive for years. Was such honesty required? Yes, but the words escaped her, trailing into silence. Reflections of a woman who had hidden in the shadows seemed to stare back at her, urging her to unmask the truth. "I agree, but I worry that revealing too much might overshadow our message." "Or it might empower it," Jackson countered, leaning closer, eyes lit with determination. "What if your experiences resonate with others? We can't just selectively share the parts that are comfortable." His words hung in the air like a challenge. Emma felt a shift inside her. Could vulnerability indeed illuminate her journey? Each feared revelation could deepen the connection she sought to create. Yet, A gnawing hesitation cautioned her against the risks of baring her soul. As they brainstormed their structure, ideas flew, morphing into a robust outline of topics: failure, shame, resilience, and ultimately, transformation. Emma felt the excitement beckon her forward, but each suggestion also felt like exposing an old wound. What if she stumbled while revealing those scars? With objectivity, she realized that Jackson's commitment to authenticity unlocked her own. She pushed her insecurities aside, channeling them as fuel for her next step. Their narratives could intertwine, a tapestry of shared experiences igniting hope in those feeling lost. By the end of the meeting, Emma sensed a delicate balance had begun to form. Each consideration unlatched a part of her assertiveness, pushing her to claim the voice that had been dormant. Yet lingering thoughts tugged at her resolve. What if this newfound clarity precipitated a confrontation with her past that she wasn't prepared to face? As they moved to wrap up, she stared down at their notes strewn before her, a map to uncharted territory. The revelation that lay ahead, a confrontation with not only past decisions but also her latent strengths, could be a crucial turning point. With the promise of discovery looming, she recognized the urgency to embrace this journey, no matter where it led. Were the pieces of her past ready to be brought into the light, the moment of truth awaited, both thrilling and terrifying. Emma felt the world shift, everything she thought she understood tethering precariously to something greater. Would she let fears dictate her path, or would she seize this opportunity for radical self-discovery? As the meeting concluded, that warm feeling of anxiety morphed into a stirring anticipation. Emma's story was ready to weave itself into something more profound than she had ever dared to imagine, but uncertainty still loomed. What if the truths she unveiled were more transformative for her than anyone else? The days that followed were a blur of notes, revisions, and soul-searching. Emma found herself oscillating between excitement and dread. Each time she sat down to prepare for their upcoming workshop, her thoughts spiraled into frantic questions. How could she translate her life's tumult into a message that would resonate? What if the past she feared would cripple her instead became the very essence of her power? Jackson's infectious enthusiasm anchored her, pulling her towards the precipice of openness. Yet, beneath the surface, Emma faced her inner dialogue, a juxtaposition of fierce determination and crippling self-doubt. Each morning, she caught glimpses of herself in mirrors, and each glance felt like an identity puzzle yet to be solved. Today would be different. She could feel it at their next meeting, sitting across from Jackson in the same cafe corner. She focused on grounding herself. We need to iterate on the topics, she declared, intertwining her fingers resolutely. Maybe create a template that allows us to both be seen and heard. Jackson leaned forward, evidenced by the spark of shared purpose igniting the air between them. Let us outline our stories in a way that invites vulnerability without drowning in it. We can establish certain guidelines, maybe even practice sharing them with comfort first. As they brainstormed, Emma's insecurity became palpable. She teetered at the edge of her comfort zone. What if we shared drafts with each other first? Like a practice run before the actual thing? Absolutely, Jackson replied, the adrenaline of possibility coursing through him. We need to strip down to the core of our experiences. There's authenticity in honesty. The moment felt electric, but as Emma scribbled notes, the spirited discussion was overtaken by an unexpected wave of hesitation. What about my ex? Sharing about him feels too raw. What if I expose someone else's struggles? Her voice wavered. The fear of dragging others into her narrative was starting to feel overwhelming. Jackson paused and offered her a steady gaze. It's a delicate balance, yes, but your experiences are yours to tell. We have to own our narratives without worrying about how they reflect on others. It's about your journey. His words struck a nerve, and the tension in Emma's chest tightened painfully. Was she ready to confront memories that echoed with shame? The answer hung in the air, elusive, yet present. Perhaps shedding light on her past choices might liberate her, creating space for growth. Determined to harness this energy, Emma took a deliberate breath. Okay. I'll draft an outline that starts with my own story, focusing on transformation. Sharing those moments of darkness could empower my message. She saw Jackson's approving nod, spurring her forward. Think of it as a tool for connection. If part of your purpose is to help others, your pain might be the bridge to guide someone else. His words became a life raft, and she clutched them tightly, ready to dive into her memories. That night, she sat in her dimly lit room, fingers dancing across the keyboard, emotions ebbing and flowing with every keystroke. The past seeped through the failures, the heartaches, the moments when she thought about giving up. As the story unfurled, Emma began to understand the power of vulnerability. Providing context to her struggles was daunting, yet liberating. Each paragraph she penned became a small act of rebellion against the fear that had long governed her life, but dread still lingered. What if her confessions altered how she viewed her own past? Would confronting those demons reshape her very identity? As the clock ticked past midnight, Emma leaned back, a mix of relief and apprehension washing over her. She had poured herself onto the page, but now faced the task of revealing the completed draft to Jackson. Would it be enough? Emma allowed sleep to creep in, but her restless mind flooded with images, a show of naked truths, her past rendered bare in front of an audience of strangers. Against the backdrop of that uncertainty, the most daunting reality struck her: to truly transform, she would need to face not only their perception but also the core of who she was. Would she be brave enough to embrace this journey not just for herself, but as a beacon for others yearning for transformation? The next chapter in her quest loomed closer, one that could either solidify her resolve or dismantle everything she thought she understood about herself. Emma felt the urgency thrumming in her veins. She stood at the edge of something monumental. Would she take the plunge? Emma stirred from sleep, awakening with an invigorating sense of purpose igniting her core. The vibrant morning sun streamed through the window of her modest room, illuminating her carefully outlined plans for the upcoming workshop with Jackson. The shift that had taken root within her was undeniable. Just days prior, she had been engulfed in uncertainty, yet now, she stood on the precipice of transformation. As she prepared for the day, her mind raced through the potential dialogues they would draft together, the stories they would weave. Drawing strength from Jackson's previously expressed desire to create impact, Emma infused that same energy into her vision. She desired to not just share a narrative but to be a catalyst for change. Her ambition unshackled. Walking into the cafe, she could sense the familiar hum of voices, yet there was an electric anticipation now running through her veins. When Jackson arrived, something had shifted in his demeanor, as if their shared commitment was already rippling outwards. "I couldn't wait to see what you've drafted," he stated, his enthusiasm palpable. "I want to show them that vulnerability can lead to strength," Emma replied, feeling the rush of clarity surge right through her. "Let us craft a space where folks feel safe to share their truths. The last thing I want is for people to feel alone." The words spilled from her, unguarded and intimate, establishing a new battlefield in their ongoing conflict with fear. Jackson nodded, eyes wide with understanding, and together they mapped their stories, each peel of vulnerability revealing more than surface-level sentiment. Emma realized how her past interwove with her present intentions. The struggles she previously observed as negatives slowly morphed into the pillars of empathy she desperately required to share. When they parted ways that day, she felt a kinship with Jackson unlike anything she'd felt before. They were forging a path together, but an unexpected challenge loomed. She recalled the woman in the blazer, her words now echoing as a stark reminder of the stakes they faced. Emma would need to confront her fears, and part of that truth involved wrestling with the ghosts of her past that might shatter the foundation she was building. So she set her resolve. The very next day, she sat down to draft her narrative, a confessional of sorts. Each syllable that flowed from her fingertips drilled through old emotional layers, calling for acknowledgement. Memories spanning lost opportunities and heartbreak surfaced from the depths, shaped by insistent glimpses of courage. Where once there had been trepidation, now there pulsated a burgeoning assurance that her past could illuminate rather than define her. Days turned into nights filled with writing, refining, evolving. Emma transformed emotional rubble into beacons of hope. By the time they sat down again to share their drafts, Emma, guarded yet invigorated, felt the weight lift from her shoulders, knowing she was no longer alone in her struggles. "I had no idea you dealt with that," Jackson said, his voice steady yet compassionate as he read her outlines. "It's incredible that you're able to weave such strength from it all." Emma's throat tightened at his validation. "I realized that I wanted to inspire others to view their vulnerabilities not as weaknesses but as essential stepping stones to reclaiming their power." The air between them thickened with possibility, and a new understanding surged. Vulnerability informed their collective strength. As they finalized their workshop structure and crafted their guiding principles, feelings of purpose began to form a fundamental part of her identity. With each revision, Emma felt herself anchored deeper into a new reality, a reality where she would no longer allow self-doubt to eclipse her ambitions. The day of their workshop arrived, bringing with it an air of charged excitement alongside undeniable nerves. Emma paced backstage, a gathering crowd murmuring in anticipation. Suddenly, the buzzing energy sharpened into clear focus. Her heart pounded at the thought of standing before those eager faces. The woman in the blazer's caution ran through her mind. This moment held the potential to shatter her constructs, to set her free. When she and Jackson took the stage, the light of the audience poured over them. A silence fell, only to be broken by Jackson's calm introduction. Emma stood beside him, feeling the weight of her story entwined with the threads of others, ready to guide them through their own transformations. Finally, she took a breath and stepped forward, her voice steady with the resonance of conviction. "Today isn't just about what we've built together, it's about the strength within each of us to embrace our stories not as burdens, but as the foundation for climbing higher." The words poured from her, and in that moment, she felt solid. With each participant who shared throughout the session, Emma noticed the emotional waves shift in unison, empowering one another and solidifying her own resilience. Personal testimonies threaded the room like vibrant strands, reinforcing her belief. Genuine connection, stemming from vulnerability, indeed held transformative power. As they wrapped up the day, Emma stood imbued with a sense of accomplishment and clarity she had never known. The connection she forged with the participants, even with Jackson, felt invigorating. No longer merely a diner waitress, she had stepped into her role as an advocate for authenticity, embodying the messages she wished to amplify. Looking back, Emma recognized she had traversed a remarkable journey from anger and frustration to purpose and clarity. She had wielded her voice, sharing her story, and with that, she had transformed not only her path but also the narratives of those who joined her. Her standing in the world had shifted dramatically. She emerged confident and feeling validated, knowing that her past had fueled her new, destined purpose. "Emma, we've created something powerful here," Jackson said, a rewarding light in his eyes. And in that moment, she believed every bit of it to be true. Emma had conquered her doubts, faced her fears, and emerged not just transformed but resolute in her aspirations. As applause rippled through the room, Emma could hardly contain the pride swelling in her chest. This was indeed her choice to rise above her circumstances and embrace the light that her journey had ignited within. Emma knew this was only the start, an opening chapter to a new life defined by courage, empathy, and shared hope. Now it's your moment to take a leap. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep the momentum going. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voice matters. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.